Gotta love setups, right? It's either you guys see my full door, or I get rid of the door with the beautiful, beautiful tree in the background, but I have this horrible thing craning above my head. Hey there pups, welcome back to another video. I wanted this video to feel a little bit casual, so I just came to you guys literally in my jammies, you know, with my little headscarf on, just in front of the tree. The tree. I feel like the tree is the main attraction, but it's really not. I kind of want to jump a little just right into it. I've been kind of thinking about how I want to finish 2020 slash start 2021. And I think everyone has jokingly said that 2020 legitimately was like the worst year ever.
Going through now is the great liquidity shock that we had been warning about as one of the fallouts from the global financial crisis.
We have lost hundreds and thousands of innocent people.
It's like the apocalypse right now.
News today from Washington State. The nest of Asian giant hornets, an invasive species, was the first ever found in the United States.
CBS News has confirmed that Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died at the age of 87 from complications from metastatic pancreatic cancer.
Heavy hearts today with the announcement of the passing of Jeopardy host Alex Trebek.
But I have been this intrinsically positive person, or at least I've tried to be. You know, so I wanted to try to find a way to make a video that reflects on what happened to me this year and kind of give a top 5 countdown for the reasons why 2020 was a pretty good year to me, at least in my own personal life. So if you're interested to see what's gonna happen in my top 5 countdown, please stay tuned. We're gonna talk about it. Let's get right into it. Here's number 5. So number 5 reason why the year 2020 was a pretty good year to me was I actually got to upgrade a lot of my technology. If you guys have seen a lot of my other videos from when I first started my YouTube channel, I was working with a Canon Cybershot an N2 that I purchased in Japan. It really had a lot of time struggling with focusing, and the specs weren't that high. From there, I started to primarily record a lot of content on my iPhone, and you know, realistically, it wasn't a poor quality, but it definitely wasn't the best. I told myself financially in 2019 I did pretty well for myself. So one of the goals that I had set in 2019 going into 2020 was that I wanted to try to upgrade the tech that I was using to try to further a lot of the things in my YouTube channel. So with that being said, I purchased a Fujifilm X-T4. It's the newest camera that they have within the XT series, and I won't lie to you, I really don't know that much on how to use it. I definitely, one of the goals at least for 2021 is to try to do a little bit more photography with this camera and learn. There's so many buttons and the menu settings, maybe just to try to figure out some of that jargon, how to use it a bit more efficiently, so that way, yes, while I'm still using it primarily to record YouTube videos, hopefully I can start to venture out and dabble into some other avenues as well. Along with my X-T4, I was able to get a ring light, which is actually lighting this particular video. I got a tripod stand, I got a Rode mic, I got a studio mic as well for you know, recording audio tracks and things of that nature. So just for crisp quality. What other tech things did I buy? Oh, I got a new laptop as well. I actually realized that the laptop that I purchased actually isn't strong enough. Go figure. I purchased a new HP Spectre and the RAM is too slow. So I'm actually in the process of sending that laptop back and potentially purchasing a newer computer with even faster RAM and more storage. So I was very, very blessed that I had the ability, like I had wished in 2019, to update some of the things that I was using this year. And even my phone, I upgraded my iPhone 8 Plus into an 11 Pro Max. I just wanted that option of being able to shoot in 4K as much as if I was going to shoot in 4K on my Fujifilm. So in 2020, I gotta say I was pretty blessed in that regard, that there was a lot of technological things that advanced, hopefully me being able to get a stronger foothold in some of the projects that I'm doing. So that's number 5. Are you guys ready? Here's number 4. So, reason number 4 on why 2020 was a pretty good year to me actually kind of goes a little bit in hand with all the new tech. Of course, like I was saying with my new XT4, it's so much, so many buttons, so many menus, so much camera jargon that I'm like, I don't know any of this. So I really had to kind of sit down and I attended YouTube Academy so many times this year in 2020. Oh, it was really rough here. So I learned a lot of new processes and programs to further my brand, as well as a lot of the professional ventures that I decided to do this year. So with 2020 and COVID and everything that happened, it was really a matter of definitely getting creative in regards to trying to find and make money. I must have downloaded, and probably still am downloading, probably about 8 to 10 different programs, some of them paid and some of them just free, on my new laptop to try to learn marketing, SEOs and funnels and HTML and coding. I mean, if you had told past Sonia that like I would have been sitting like in an apartment trying to learn the back end of like websites, I probably would have laughed you off the face of this earth. There would have been no way. But with all of this time, there was nothing to do but figure out how to use things and how to use them to my advantage. So I am definitely thankful for 2020, because I know had 2020 run the course that it was supposed to, I would have never learned a lot of these new programs and processes that I am learning and that I do know now. So I got to give it up to 2020 for that, along with new tech, is new programs and new education. Speaking of education, we're going to get right into number 3 of why 2020 was pretty good. Reason number 3 why 2020 was pretty good to me definitely coincides with what I was talking about, education. I mean, unless you've been under a rock this year, there's been so many discussions about social injustice, or obviously systemic racism.
I will never forget this for the rest of my life.
The Trump administration has rolled back Obama-era protections against sex discrimination in healthcare for transgender and non-binary Americans.
And while I don't want to sit here and say that I wasn't, quote unquote, not woke, I had a lot of learning to do this year about the history of our nation, and just how some of our policies that are in place work, and how sometimes those policies either do or do not work for certain groups that exist within this country. In June and July, I think that is truly the height of obviously the Black Lives Matter movement. Obviously within America, there was such a talk of so much that's going on. So with having so much downtime and watching Netflix documentaries and reading posts on Instagram and scrolling through people's Insta stories and having those deep, in-depth, heartfelt conversations with family members and friends and loved ones and co-workers, I think if 2020 had not have played out the way that it did this year, I don't think we would have been having those hard conversations. I don't think, even to the largest extent, that the election would have played out the way it did.
Should pre-existing conditions which Obamacare brought to fruition be removed?
No.
Please stop and let me finish my question, sir.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared to
do
specifically
do it?
Supremacists and
white
like me to condemn? White supremacists and right
Boys, stand back and stand by.
Mr. President, you've described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've said that black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
I am the least racist person in this room.
I think social injustice and systemic racism was such a hot topic issue for so many people in this country, and I think it should be. I think we have got to find a way going forward past 2020 to come together and find a way to feel like everybody gets their turn. And as much as I read and I try to understand the laws and the why, because everything has a reason behind it, right? Nothing is done without something behind it. But for me, I am thankful to 2020 that I got that time. I got that time to read and research and educate myself in a lot of areas about this country that I truly just did not know. Just the most simplest way to put it, I just didn't know. So now let's move on to reason number 2. All right, so reason number 2 on why 2020 was a pretty good year to me. And it's a pretty recent actual reason. I got to move. So I have been living in Las Vegas for about 3 months now. And, not many things are open just yet, of course, with things going on. And I've spent a lot of time probably at home and a lot of time just kind of putzing around, maybe like at the grocery store, just here or there. But in most of my adult life, I have not found a place where I could reasonably say that I could see myself staying long term. I truly, in my heart of hearts, thought it would be California, and maybe there's a part of me that still hopes that, but California is so expensive. And I could see myself actually staying here probably long term. I've told my mom that I genuinely want to start looking for a house. I know, friends. What? Sonia finding a house? I know, wild. But I am definitely excited to see what 2021 will bring in terms of laying some roots and maybe hopefully making some lifelong friends here, and hopefully eventually getting a pet where they're, who knows what that kind of pet will be, but we'll see. So 2020 wasn't definitely bad in that regard. I could promise you, if 2020 had gone the way it was supposed to go, I would not even be thinking about Las Vegas. I wouldn't even be here. I probably wouldn't have even met my roommate who convinced me to move here. So yeah, I just gotta kind of, you know, take it for what it is. I think in some way, shape, or form, I was supposed to end up in Vegas. Like, I don't know, maybe it's long term, I hope so, but only time will tell. So, all right, let's get into it. Here we go in our countdown. We're gonna talk about reason number 1 on why 2020 was a pretty good year for me. So, reason number 1 on why 2020 was a pretty good year to me was because I got to focus on myself. And I'm gonna try really hard to get through this explanation for why this is the number 1 reason without crying, because I'm such a softie and this is tragic. So, sorry, here we go. For most of my life, if not all of my life, I have been very dependable. I'm like kind of that vault of a person where like you could probably go and tell me the worst, most possible thing to happen to you, and I'm gonna actively listen and offer advice if you want it, or just listen if you don't need advice. And I'm that person that wants to celebrate every person's birthday. I want to celebrate you. I want you to feel special. And that's always been who I am as a person. And in the most recent of years, I feel like I have spent so much time making other people feel happy that I didn't feel happy. And that was a really hard realization to come to. It is also in my nature that when I can't handle things, that I tend to kind of venture off and do something else. So, I moved abroad and I was a flight attendant and I traveled with 8th graders down the coast, but I never took the time to really focus on the elephant in the room, which is that I emotionally was not taking care of myself. Which in 2020, there was no work and there was nowhere to go. So I really had to sit down with myself and ask some really hard questions and get some really hard answers. And in doing so, it kind of made me realize what I allow people to do and how I allow people to make me feel. And I didn't like either one of those things, truthfully. So with 2020, I did a lot of self-reflection in my own life, that if I had been on the road and I had been traveling with 8th graders and I had been doing my job and potentially applying to become a flight attendant again and moving back home to Florida and being with my friends, I think I would have continued on this toxic trait of myself where I will avoid all my issues to invest in other people's issues. And I think that leaves you in a very hard place with yourself at the end of the day if you don't own what you're avoiding. There's nothing you can't fix it if you don't acknowledge it. And that's what I did this year. It's probably one of the nerdiest things to admit, but thinking that I've found a long-term place to live makes me really excited about trying to find a therapist. I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to talk to someone. I think every person should invest in a therapist. I think in some way, shape, or form, we're all a little bit damaged. Not in a bad way, but just, life happens, right? And you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you keep going. But I'm so excited to find a registered person to talk to for 2021. I owe that to myself. when I was flying, I was going to the gym every night on overnights, and I was eating well, and everyone's like, oh my God, you look amazing. You look so good. And like, yeah, like physically I looked great, but emotionally I was so depressed. I was so alone. I was crying every day. I like felt like I couldn't handle life at that point of time. And I want to be able to commit to myself in 2021 that I can get my head healthy and I can get my body healthy all at the same time and not have to pick or choose which one takes precedence. So yeah, that is reason number 1. Okay, pups. Well, those are my top 5 reasons for why 2020 actually wasn't that bad of a year for me. You know, looking back on it, I always say that everything in life has purpose. Everything. And whether it's good or bad, we've got to find the why and why all of this happens. And I know that individuals have definitely had a tough year, lost jobs, lost family members, lost homes, pets, something along those lines. But I just always want to try to find some silver lining, some why in all of the madness to give it purpose. And for me, those 5 reasons make me hopeful for what's to come within the rest of the decade. So here's to you, 2020. I gotta say, thanks so much, but I hope I never have to relive you ever again. Well, pups, that's it for this video. If you're a new pup here to the Doghouse, please make sure you subscribe, press the button, hit the bell, so that way you'll know when new videos are coming along. As always, thanks again for coming along with me on this journey called life, and until then, I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye. Is it that one or is it? I don't know. Oh, Jesus. Nope, that's not it.